This video is intended to provide a clear understanding on the differences between Outlook using Resource Scheduler web portal, and Resource Scheduler as an overall whole. Let me start by saying, before we converted to Outlook for our mail, if you scheduled reservations through your Lotus Notes calendar, chances are you are going to use Outlook to schedule a room. Before we converted to Outlook for mail, if you use the rooms and resources in Lotus Notes by the front page and following the link, chances are you are going to reserve your room through the Resource Scheduler web portal. Don't worry if you don't understand the difference quite yet, but I promise we will get there. We are going to start with Outlook and using Resource Scheduler in Outlook. I think it's very important to remember that when we are talking about Outlook in general, regardless if we're using Resource Scheduler or not, if you're making an appointment through your Outlook calendar, you are using Outlook. If I double-click make an appointment or a meeting, regardless of which one it is, this primary screen is Outlook. If I use the scheduling assistant, I'm still using Outlook. If I'm using Resource Scheduler, I'm still using Outlook. The point of Outlook is it is focused on either a series of appointments or meetings or a particular meeting, a single meeting. When we're making an appointment or a meeting and we're inside the screen, it might be helpful to think of each one of these icons as just a separate tab or a separate page if you were looking at a paper type calendar. Here is where I'm going to set my schedules and my reoccurrences, my high importance. If I wanted to add attendees, do I want reminders? What is this about? This is the title of the meeting, the start time, the end time. All of that is done on this tab, on the appointment tab. Who is available during this time that I have just created for this said subject are the individuals that I've invited, if that applies, of course. Are they available? Then you move on to what room am I going to have this in? Well, we already know the time we need the appointment, who's going to be attending if that applies, so now we need to choose a room. By clicking on this tab, you just go to a different page, all within Outlook. So when we're talking making an appointment through Outlook, we're saying the same thing as we are making an appointment in Outlook. We're just using Resource Scheduler. Prior to Resource Scheduler, we would have never used the statement, I'm making an appointment in Outlook and then I'm going to use scheduling assistant. It's because it's all contained within this single meeting or or the reoccurrence itself within Outlook. It is Outlook. Now, if we compare what Outlook was to or is compared to Lotus Notes in that process, it is essentially the same, provides you the same information. You can choose your views. You can look at a particular day. When you create a reservation in Lotus Notes, you are filling this information out. Here's a Outlook appointment. Now, Outlook does separate appointments and meetings, but essentially you're filling out the same information. So just as in Lotus Notes, you'll put in a subject or the title of your meeting. When does it start? When does it end? What is the repeating schedule? Same as Outlook. When does it start? When does it end? Our repeating schedule. If you have attendees, who's required, optional, FYI. If this was a meeting, this one is actually an appointment in Outlook, you would have the same information. The who's it going to, who's going to be invited, who's the host. The location. In Lotus Notes, this was populated after you completed your search. Here, is the same thing. The location will be completed after you conduct your search. So clicking on the Resource Scheduler button is no different than clicking on the Find Rooms button in Lotus Notes. You're telling Lotus Notes here where to search. When you perform your search here, now I might get some errors because the Lotus Notes has been shut down at this point, but you can see here, if I were to search, I'm saying at this building, here's general rooms, here's the types of resources I want, or just show me the available rooms, only the available ones. By you conducting that search, it is no different than clicking on the Find Rooms. You're going to choose the site. And this is not any different than just selecting the building that you're looking at here in your search options. Same thing, you put in the number of attendees. You can also do that here. Here you can tell it only show me the available. Lotus Notes would search for only the available rooms during the time that you specified. When you click search, again, this is not going to function because Lotus Notes is shut down, but when you perform your search, you'd be able to select a room here and click OK. That's the same thing when you're on the resource scheduler icon in Outlook. And once you select the room, you hit save, and it populates the room that you'll be in. So like I said, just as Lotus Notes functioned when you were creating a new meeting from the calendar, is the same way that Outlook functions. And you are still clicking basically buttons to select the information that you need to show up as an overall whole for your reservation. Now let's take a look at the Resource Scheduler web portal. It's important to remember that the web portal itself for Resource Scheduler is found by going to a particular website. So you're either clicking a bookmark that you had saved in your browser, or it could also be considered a favorite in a favorites folder for your web browser, a desktop icon that brings you to a website link. It could be part of your start menu at the bottom. If you're in Windows 10, it could be part of the start menu that kind of comes up with little icons on there. Really, it could be a number of different things, but ultimately you're pulling up a web browser and going to a website. And that's the Resource Scheduler web portal. The Resource Scheduler web portal is comparable to what the Room and Resource Scheduler schedules module was. So this link right here, which brought up this page in Lotus Notes, is essentially the same thing as the Resource Scheduler web portal. Basically, the web portal shows you reservations for all locations you have access to. So just as you could go into Lotus Notes and say you were looking for a particular date. I know that's how a lot of people did, looked up their information. They would look up the particular date, they would see what's happening at their location, times, what room might be available. Other situations, they might just go right to this page and click on new reservation or even quick reservation. This is the same thing in the web portal. If I'm looking at today and I go into the web portal on a particular day, I can see the rooms up here and I can click inside the calendar and I begin a quick reservation. The information that it's asking me for is essentially the same information that's being asked in Lotus Notes. I have my title, reservation description, number of attendees, the type of meeting, the resource that I'm looking for or that I'd like, start time, end time. This is where it is a little bit different. See here, you have your title, your phone extension, because you had to put that in, number of attendees, and you could find a room. With the information that I put in here, I already know what room I'm typically going to select. Let's go to one that's already done. But once I click more, I'm actually able to provide much more information than I was able to provide in Lotus Notes. I can provide setup information, lobby information. I can communicate with the room admin by providing notes. And this all is depending on building and location, of course. But this is where you're providing your details or the meat of your reservation. You can see it's titled the date and the time. If I was going to have a repeating event, that's when I would select that here and choose my repeating schedule. No different than you would do here. If I wanted to mimic the new reservation or quick reservation in Lotus Notes, I would just go to the reservation wizard. I would provide my scope. You can keep it really general, and that makes it very, very easy. Here's the location I want. I'm fine. I can look through the groups and the types and all of that. This is all optional information. Your date, that that your meeting will take place, start time, end time. I don't know if we have any rooms available, but if we did, I can tell it only show me available resources, and I can set my reoccurring schedule from here. This mimics the same information that you enter in here and you click search. You're essentially doing the exact same thing. Your view is different. Now here is where you would enter your reservation name. How many are attending? What type of meeting is it? Would you like this meeting to be private, or are you okay with all individuals within the system being able to see the name of the meeting? Your process is the same, it just looks different. From here, you would select the room that you would like. If it's required to have a setup that you choose, then you will also need to select that setup type here. When you are done, let's just do that. When you are done and you have found your room, you can hit submit. If there's additional information, it would require you to fill that out. It gives you an overview of everything that you just reserved, and you can click finished. In the event that you would like to add this to your Outlook calendar, you can at this time. As you can see, going through the reservation wizard mimics going through the reservation wizard in Lotus Notes. The look is different. The steps may be different, but you're doing the exact same thing. Your end goal is the same. And as you can see, I've created a reservation, a repeating daily reservation here by going through the reservation wizard. The whole goal is to understand the difference between Resource Scheduler, Outlook using Resource Scheduler, and the Resource Scheduler web portal. And the biggest thing to remember is knowing where or how, I should say, you've placed the reservation into the system. However you put a reservation in, if you need to modify, that is the area which you will go in and change. And I have a lot of people ask, well, how do I know which way I reserved a room 4 months from now? If you look at your Outlook calendar, let's just say that's where the appointment's at, and you're not too sure, did I make that appointment through the web portal or did I make it in Outlook? You can double click on the reservation itself. And from there, you should be able to see, and I'll show you the two differences here of what what they look like. Here's one appointment made in Outlook. Here's the appointment that was made through the reservation wizard or any other method through the resource scheduler web portal. You can see here that it actually has a direct link to the web portal site. That's how you will know the difference of where you scheduled your meeting. Now, in this particular case, I don't think either of these have a reoccurring schedule. But if I needed to change anything with this meeting, this particular meeting, I would need to follow that link, which brings me to the web portal. And that's where I would change my meeting. I would have to be sure to download that iCal after making the changes and adjusting my own calendar in Outlook. This meeting I can see that I made in Outlook. And if I need to adjust the title, the start time, the end time, the dates or the start time and the end time, I would do that here. And anytime I make a change to any one of these important pieces right here, along with the reoccurrence schedule, I always want to check back to Resource Scheduler to make sure that my room is still available. When I am finished making the changes, I'll save and close. I truly hope this cleared up any confusion between Outlook and using Resource Scheduler in Outlook in the Resource Scheduler web portal. Resource Scheduler as a whole are made up of these two pieces, similar to Lotus Notes. And that's simply the name for the overall system. This concludes the training video.